My name is Dion Olmstead, and I am an advisor with the Small Business Development Center here in Maine. And I cover the Western Maine region, primarily Oxford, Franklin, and I'm missing one, Androscoggin counties. Um, so, we'll be talking about startup checklist today. Meaning basically the first steps to consider when you're starting a business or even, thinking about starting a business, starting to plan for one. So just a little housekeeping first. This is being recorded, and you will get a copy of it once we're done. If you can keep yourself on mute during the presentation, that would be great. And if you have any questions, feel free to submit them in the chat at any time. And we will take some time at the end if people have questions to answer any questions you have. And I don't know how many of you have worked with the small business development centers in the past, but if you don't know what we do, we provide no cost confidential business advising to current and to aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners. And that can take a lot of different routes. There's a lot we can cover. Like this list says, business planning and startups. So, writing a business plan, thinking through all these startup steps, like we're going to talk about today, business transitions and exits. So, anytime in your business, in the progression of your business, we can help out, even to the point of, helping you get ready to sell a business, assistance with credit and financing, financial analysis, marketing and sales, operations management, and like it says, much more. Whatever your needs are, we are generalists. So we can help with a lot of different needs. Sometimes that's just pointing you in the right direction of the appropriate expert to help you. So, we're going to start with a poll, and you can just put this into the text. But where are you in your business development progress? Are you just thinking about starting a business? Do you have an idea, but you don't know where to start? Or are you in business? Are you making sales? And where are you at in that, in the progression of your business? So, if anyone feels willing to do so, please share it in the text, in the chat. Sorry. Great. So it looks like we have a lot of people that are they're sort of just starting out. They're thinking about a business and getting ready. And so I'm hoping that this webinar will be very helpful for you. So here are the things we're going to go over today: market research, business planning, and writing a business plan, choosing the type of entity you want to be, naming your business, where you're going to locate the business, insurance, licenses, and permits. Show me the money, which means financing. Where are you going to get the money to start your business? We'll cover a little bit of legal stuff and tax advice, and talk a little bit about the point at which you hire employees, what to be thinking about, how to use this checklist. So, a lot of these steps, and I think this is just true of business planning in general, is that we see things in very progressive steps: step one, step two, step three. But that's not always important. So don't think of this list as like a rigid uh, framework for order you need to do these things. Sometimes you might turn these around a little bit. Sometimes you might be working on pieces of these in tandem. So don't get hung up on the order. So we'll start with market research, which really is looking at the feasibility of your business idea and planning accordingly. And a lot of what we're looking at is who's your customer? Who's your target customer? What's your target market? Who's going to want to buy this product or service? And how are you going to get to them? So there are two types of market research, two primary types, I guess, primary and secondary. And primary is really getting out and getting out into the community, and doing your own research, trying to do things like polls or talk to potential customers, and figure out who it is that wants to buy your product and where they are and what makes them who they are. Demographic information about what makes up that customer base. And so it's sort of your own research related to your own business, where secondary market research is when you're doing actual research, looking at data, looking at reports, industry reports, things like that, to see what the market for your industry is. What opportunities there are in your industry, how big is it, how much competition is there, what are people charging, and how much are they making from their products or services. And so, but like it says here, really the first step is to get out and talk to customers. If you can identify who your target customers are, getting out and doing that face-to-face research is really where you want to get going, because that's what's going to help you define your specific customers in your specific market, where we live, who lives around us, things like that make a huge difference um, on the success of your business. Things that might be successful here wouldn't be successful somewhere else, and vice versa. So we can do as much research as we want into industries, but it's also super important to get out and figure out whether this is going to work in your area and how it's going to work. The first step that any business advisor is going to recommend to you is a business plan. And so, what is a business plan? Like it says here, it's a narrative and it's numbers. But ultimately, what a business plan does is, or what it is a document that helps you to understand your business better. And that's sort of the primary, what I think of as the first reason to write a business plan is for you. It explains to you, it challenges you really, I guess, to figure out how your business is going to run, um, what your product is, like really defining your product, really defining the mission of your business, and how you're going to market it, who your competitors are, things like that, as well as numbers. This is where we're first going to spell out the numbers of our business. How much are we going to charge? What do our costs look like to run this business? And ultimately, the business plan is what you'll take to a lender to get funding. But like I said, first it helps you define your business, and then later it actually helps you to run your business. It provides you guidance. It's like a roadmap. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. So it's something that you can always refer back to when you're trying to figure out if you're sort of staying on course. And if not, it can help you get back on course. It can also give you a good understanding of what you need to change if you do have to go in a somewhat different direction. So, like I said, the first objective is you and your business, the primary operations of your business and the success of your business really, the chances of success for a business are much higher for people that write take the time to write a business plan. So the first audience is you, but then the second audience is the bank, grant applications, investors. This is the document that gives them a clear understanding of what you're doing. If they can't get a good, clear understanding of what your business is from reading the business plan, they're probably not going to fund it. You know, they really want to understand the business in a real clear and succinct document before they lend you money. We get a lot of questions about choosing a legal entity. Um, you know, what what kind of business do you want to be? Do you want to be a sole proprietor, which is basically just you acting as your own business? Do you want to be an LLC, which is a little bit it's more it's still you, but you acting like a corporation in a sense, like and then there's really like corporate status, like an S corp or a C corp. Most of the time in small business, we're talking about either being the sole proprietor or partnership, I suppose, an LLC or possibly an S corp. So, the advantages of a sole proprietorship are that it's really easy to start. There's not a lot to do to get going. Really, you have to register with your town, and and that's pretty much it most of the time. For an LLC, there's a little bit more paperwork to do. You do have to register with the state uh, as an LLC, and there's a little bit of cost and a little bit of ongoing paperwork to do for that. But the reward of it is that you get, if you do it right, you have an opportunity to really reduce the liability of your the liability to yourself, by sort of keeping your business separate. The LLC, that's what, it says, I'm a separate business. I'm not this person. So you're able to separate your liabilities, your personal liabilities from your business liabilities. And then if you're S Corp, it might be, which is an S corporation, um, you may be aiming to, grow your business quite a bit. You might be looking for a different tax structure. It's really good if you're doing things like hiring a number of employees. But once again, every one of these steps comes with a little bit more paperwork and a little bit more expense. There's a little bit more management with an S corporation. Uh, and the most important thing to do is to speak to an accountant. There are lots of reasons that one might pick any of these categories, and a professional accountant can really help you figure out what's best for you and your business. So naming, there it seems like a very simple thing to do, name your business, right? And it is. It's not really that hard, but there are things to consider. And the first one, and we get a lot of questions about this, is DBA, which means doing business as. And that the DBA is sort of what might separate you, again, your business name from your technical business name from the business name you want to use when you're selling your products or services. So we'll use this as an example, this sign, Jimmy's Hot Dogs. So maybe the name of the business is Jimmy's LLC, but that's not going to sell many hot dogs. So we may add DBA, a DBA name, so it's Jimmy's Hot Dogs. The customer sees Jimmy's Hot Dogs, and behind the scenes, your business is Jimmy's LLC with DBA, Jimmy's Hot Dogs. It's not hard to do this. One of the places that we often do this is at the bank, so that when we go to cash checks for Jimmy's Hot Dogs, they'll cash it. So even on your bank account, it'll say, you know, Jimmy's, DBA, Jimmy's Hot Dogs. And this sort of matters for any type of entity. So if you're a sole proprietor, really your business name is your name. So you're almost always, unless you're running by your name, going to have this DBA category attached because um, you um, you probably don't want to just go by your name, right? So your business will always be separate from your name. LLCs and corporations use these all the times as well. Um, it not only does it better marketing, but it also feels a lot less cold, right? That if you're buying, you want to buy Jimmy's hot dogs, probably don't want to buy Jimmy's LLC. So it's just a warmer feel for the business. Um, and we'll talk a little bit briefly about protection and trademarks. So if you have a business name that's very important to you, very unique, perhaps, you may want to consider trademarking it. And the trademark, there are two types. There is a state trademark in many places, and then there's a federal trademarking system. And if you decide to go through that system, it will be because you want to preserve your name. You don't want anyone else using the name of your entity. Um, but it should keep in mind that it's pretty expensive route. It's not guaranteed and it's time consuming. So normally we only trademark if we have a really unique name to go along with our business. Location, right? So where you're going to locate matters. If you, especially if you're, um, you know, trying to attract customers or making a product. Sometimes we do things that don't really require a location. That's great. That makes it easier. But there are a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about locating, renting or leasing a space as opposed to buying it is one big consideration. And then whether you might consider operating it out of your home in the beginning. So renting and leasing have different benefits and drawbacks. Obviously, uh, when we're buying, right, we have an asset that's ours that can be can that can be part of the business, right? So we get something real uh, with buying it, with buying our location, but it's very expensive. It's not a very good way to try out a location, and there are often a lot of extra expenses involved than, rather than leasing or renting. Uh, you, for instance, you really want to be sure you got the right location if you're going to buy it. And so when you're starting out in business, especially if retail traffic matters, the purchase of the site, you want to be pretty sure that that's going to work out. It's a lot harder to move from your owned location than from when you're testing out as a lease. Leases, though, they can be expensive. They can be long term, and again, there's also no guarantee or you're going to be in the right spot. But hopefully, you've done market research to say that it's a good spot. Um, some of the benefits of leasing are that there are a lot of expenses related to the building that won't be on you. They'll be on somebody else. You can really focus on running the business. Um, and then uh, if you decide to lease or rent, you want to really consider um, a lot of things about a commercial lease that might be different from like your experience, say, renting an apartment or something. Um, One is that it can be the case that improvements to the space are the business owner's responsibility, not the leasee or the renter. Um, and the terms can be lengthy. You may sign a 3, 5 year lease oftentimes as opposed to a 1 year lease. Um, so you want to really do some homework, and you want to go into it with the mindset that you're going to make sure that the lease is affordable for your business. Sort of brings us back to the business plan, right? How much can you afford for a lease or rental space or to buy, right? And if the business can't afford it, then you don't want to do it. So one of the worst things that somebody can do is um, hear, well, the space is available. They've heard that there's this great space that's available. It's probably not going to be available for very long. You should rush out and sign a lease so you secure that spot. Um, but if that doesn't A, meet the requirements of your business, or B, is too expensive, that's not going to be good for you in the long run. Remember, you're signing potentially a 3 or 5 year commitment to pay for the space every month. So you want to really do market research to make sure it's a good place for you. And you want to really consider the terms of the lease. And one of the things that's often different about a commercial lease as well is that it's a lot of building owners expect that will be negotiated. The terms of the lease will be negotiated. So as opposed to rent, where we usually just pay for our apartment, whatever they ask, right? If we like it, we take it. If we don't, we don't. We can often negotiate the terms of the lease, either the amount of money that we're paying per month, but also maybe who does those improvements to a space to make it what you need it for your business, or when do you start paying the lease? One really good example, I think, of a good negotiation is um, not starting to pay the lease until the space is ready to be used. So if you're looking at a space and it needs work and they're going to do renovations to it, um, trying to negotiate a start to that lease that's uh, start to the payment of the lease that's much closer to the start of your business date, it can be a really big deal. So just keep in mind that you want to sort of balance the cost of the lease against what you can afford, and that you want to go into it with your negotiator's hat on. Location, myth or fact? It's most of the time it's true. Um, are your target customers, is your target market where that location is? Sometimes a location might look really good for you. Um, Maybe it's right downtown and you see all this foot traffic, looks like a great spot. Um, and then you realize there's not much parking, and you have clientele that cycles in and out a lot. Maybe it's an ice cream shop, say, where people are coming in, they want to get ice cream, they want to leave. If they have to look really hard for parking, they're probably not going to stop there. So there are a lot of things to consider when you're thinking about locating your business. And that's where, doing that kind of research to figure out if this is really appropriate for you or not, it is important. Um, One thing to mention too about if you're going to be located in your home, um, you can see it says zoning here. One of the greatest, easiest places to start a business is in a space you're already paying for, right? For in your home, and that can be a really beneficial place to be. But um, zoning in your town or city might prohibit it. So when you go to start the business and they find out your office, or your location is at your home, they may tell you that you can't do what you're doing there. So it's really important to check ahead of time if you're going to be a home-based business, and make sure that your location is suitable for the business you're going to do. There are lots of kinds of insurance for a business. Um, Most of the time, most business insurance, the sort of overarching category is general liability. General liability policies, almost every business has one of these, and it covers a lot of the things that are sort of, that we think about that could happen to customers getting hurt, potentially property damage to to a customer's property more than anything. But a lot of the general sort of liabilities that your business might experience are covered under a general liability policy. So if you go shopping for an insurance policy for your business, this is the first thing they're going to price for you. But it doesn't cover everything. So so there are other insurances to consider. And normally the way to do that is to find a good commercial insurance agent and get some prices. I would recommend going to several just to see what they offer you, not only in terms of prices, but how they look at your business and what types of coverage they give you. Because you don't want to miss liabilities that aren't covered under the general liability policy. And here are just a few examples on this page. So workers' compensation insurance will cover your employees. That's the insurance that any of us that have had a job, are covered under workers' compensation, and that's like an insurance that's solely for the purpose of covering the workers while they're at work. So if you slip and fall at work or something like that, this is the insurance that's going to cover the costs of any medical procedures that you need and potentially the time you need to get better as well. Um, Auto and commercial property, both are important. Depending on your business, your regular auto insurance may not cover it. So you want to make sure that you're covered. Your auto or any others that you're using are completely covered for business purposes. Commercial property, this would actually cover the structures that you own or potentially lease as well in some circumstances uh, that that would not be covered. Those types of things are not covered under general liability. So if you have a fire at your business, that would be covered by commercial property. Another example I like to use is errors and omissions, which is really sort of a more professional type of insurance. Oftentimes it's used for people that are doing consulting and things, but it's basically like something you missed, something you forgot to put into a report that affected something later, or something that you calculated wrong. So if you and your business were to make an error that had costs for, say, a customer, that's what errors and omissions would cover. And I will mention health insurance because it's important when you have employees. If you're going to offer health insurance, and sometimes you have to. Uh, it's a big step. So the best way to start to me is go to this website. It's coverme.org. It's specifically for Maine, and it talks about health coverage, and it has a page specifically for small businesses that points you in the right direction to get started with, looking for that coverage for you and your employees. Licenses and permits. So, what is a business license? Um, People are often surprised to hear that there is no just business license. There's no license you need just to be in business. And quite often, there are lots of businesses that really don't need any licenses. Um, at all. So, the first step is to talk to your municipality, see what you may need in your town or city that may not be obvious from like a statewide perspective. Um, and uh, and then there's this great service we have called Maine Business Answers. and we can provide you with a link to that. Sounds too good to be true, but it's not. You can call or email Maine Business Answers anytime during the working day, and there are people that staff Maine Business Answers to answer business related questions for business owners and potential business owners. So if you're not sure if you need a specific license or permit, one great way to start is by asking Maine Business Answers. So this is just the page of Maine Business Answers. This is what you'll find when you go to their website, and it's pretty neat. This is the page on the Maine.gov website that talks about that gives links to different business licenses that are necessary. Because while there's no general need for a business license in Maine, there are specific industry requirements that may for which you may need a permit or license. And possibly those could even be federal permits and licenses you need. A good example would be maybe a food product that you're doing across state borders. You know, you're selling it in other states. It's interstate commerce of food. You'll need to go beyond Maine and look at FDA and or USDA to see what's required from them. But this page is a really great way to start. It gives you links to different pages on state websites that cover things like liquor licensing, food, uh, mechanics licenses, things like that. There's also at the top here is the Maine Bureau of Corporations. That's where you will go to get the paperwork you need for if you're going to file for a corporation status of an LLC or other corporation status. Um, Cover this a tiny bit later, but I'll also say lots of people, if they want to start either an LLC or a corporation, will go online. They'll Google it. You know, how do I start a corporation in Maine? The first X number of answers you'll find at the top of page one are paid ads that will help you file all the paperwork for you. But a word of warning is that while they'll probably do it correctly, they'll also charge quite a bit of money for something that's very easy to do. It sounds hard, but registering for both an LLC, partnership types of agreements, or corp S or C corp are really quite easy, and it's much less expensive to do it yourself. One of the big reasons that we talk about business planning, things like that, are to get financing. You know, how are you going to finance your business? Where are you going to get the startup money for it? Um, well, there are really a lot of answers to this too. You may go to a traditional bank. That's the most common source of money, but there are also non-traditional lenders that can help people out when they may not qualify for a traditional loan. And then, of course, there are all other types of ways that people fund their businesses by finding investors. Yeah, investors can even be, friends or family. Crowdfunding is an option. It's not quite as easy as it sounds, but it's a good way to, get some startup funds, especially to contribute to the starting of the business. Help you cover maybe your down payment, 20% down, things like that. It can be quite useful if you have the right business. Um, so one of the things that I would always caution you on is undercapitalization. So when you're thinking about borrowing money, well, just when you're thinking about the money you need to start and operate your business, it's very tempting and easy to think, well, how little do I need? How can I cut back and get start this with less? And while there's is merit in that, it's also can be a really detrimental way of looking at what you need in that startup phase. It's sort of like somebody said to me one time, it's sort of like filling your car halfway with gas, half the tank with gas. So you're going to get quite a ways and then you're going to run out of fuel, right? So the worst thing that you can do is think about, you know, having enough money, say, to get through all those really hard startup phases, and then you're sort of getting close to that reward point and you run out of money. Um, so thinking about what you need really, like realistically, not just for, things like equipment, but also things like, extra money on hand, right? Cash on hand to make sure you have enough to get through those first months where you're probably not making money and get to that point of profit is really important. And it's a lot easier to plan that ahead of time than to go back later, and try to ask for more money, try to correct those problems from the beginning. That it's like sort of creates a wrinkle that that keeps going. Oftentimes that comes with things like not marketing yourself enough because you're cutting back on funds or not doing the job as efficiently. So um, undercapitalization is tough for a business. It's hard to get beyond that. You're sort of constantly trying to make up for it. And financial institutions you borrow from are much happier and more likely to lend extra capital in the beginning of a project than they are if you come back and say, "Hey, I'm running out of money." So, what the real take home for that is to me is to plan that extra money into the financial projections and business plan you'll be working on before starting your business. So cash flow projections. Cash flow projections are a great accompaniment to a business plan. Uh, there's something I'm really sort of passionate about, in the sense that I think the business plan is sort of the narrative. It's the who and how and why. And this is the cash flow projections are the proof. This is going to work because I planned it this way. Um, and so basically, it proves the feasibility of a project. It shows to banks and other lenders that you're worth financing. It helps us determine the pricing of our products, and it tells us when we can hire someone, when we think we can afford to hire someone, and how much we can afford to pay them. And it helps us budget for the whole business. And in a state like Maine, this is sort of true everywhere, but in a state like Maine, seasonality is often a big deal for a lot of our businesses. We have months that are real good and months that are slow. So financial projections can tell us, can help us work through those slow months by knowing them ahead of time, basically, saying we need this much money on hand for the slow months to get through, so that we're making decisions in the decisions we're making in the good months. We're not overspending during that time because we know that there's seasonality to our business. But in essence, the cash flow projections take the expenses you expect to pay for your business, and that can be a lot of different things. It can be those startup costs in the beginning, and then it can be sort of ongoing costs of things like big ticket items like vehicles or equipment. But a lot of it's also just what we call the cost of goods sold, which is what the costs are to make your product. If you're selling ice cream, it's the cone and all the ingredients that go into making the ice cream. It's the napkins. It's the things that are directly associated with making your product. And then there are monthly expenses, rent, insurance, advertising, things like that. And so all of these things need to be figured in to your business, and we do that through cash flow projections. And um, these can be daunting to people that have never done them before, but I think it's a good time to point out that that's why we're here. We can help you with these, and I don't think any of us expect that people can do these all on their own, and that we'll just look them over and say, oh yeah, that's good or it's not. So if you need help with cash flow projections, just like with the business plan, that's what SBDC is here to help with. I'll also say too, one other thing about cash flow projections I've noticed is that people are worried that their cash flow projections aren't going to, they're not going to work, right? So the information you put in, and then the price you're setting for your product or service don't work. You're not going to make any money at it. And sometimes that's true. But a lot of times what that tells us is that, or helps us figure out is why it doesn't work. So I think a lot of people get nervous that they're not going to work, and that their business won't work. But really, the cash flow projections just tell us what is it that's not working? Do we need to raise the price of the item to because our expenses are too high? Can we cut back on the cost of expenses somewhere? Is are we planning should we be looking for smaller, more affordable space to lease, things like that. So they're really not meant to say yes or no as much as they are to tell us what's not working and figure out how to fix it. This is just a sample of one page of a cash flow projection. At the top, it talks about sales. There's a line up at the top for sales. That's just really is the receipts for the amount of money that you're making. And as you can see, they're laid out by month. This particular sample will subtract the loans, I guess, at the top. This is not the one that I usually use. So pardon me. And then cash paid out. These are the monthly expenses we're talking about that 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 we have to pay to stay in business. Things like our employees' wages, payroll taxes, repairs to equipment, advertising. It's really easy to, without some type of a cash flow projection like this, it's really easy to spend too much and make too little. There are a number of different taxes you have to consider depending on the business you're in. But like a lot of this stuff, I think this seems daunting. Taxes seem really daunting, and complex, but they're they're not as complex as they seem. A lot of it has to do with good record keeping, and some good information from your accountant. A lot of tax things, it's good to know about them. It's really good to understand them. But ultimately, the best thing you can do is have a licensed accountant in your corner to help you with all of this. And your job then becomes to sort of facilitate good tax management. And their job is to, do the behind the scenes work for you. Income taxes, we all know about income taxes because we pay them as individuals. But the difference between paying them when you're working for somebody and paying them when you're in business for yourself is that you're paying both. Yeah, for you as the owner, anyway, you're paying both your own share, and you're paying the share that the business would normally pay for you. So it's a split. So your income taxes for yourself will double essentially. So you want to keep that in mind as the owner. Income taxes also when you have employees, you'll be paying a portion of their taxes. Um, and then you'll be having theirs taken out through whatever payroll system you use. Uh, Self-employment taxes, basically, we've covered most of that under the income tax for owners. Um, there are a number of payroll taxes or taxes and items to deduct: Social Security, income tax, and I'm forgetting something. I'll think of it. Anyway, sales tax is something that a lot of businesses have to pay. Um, it's the sales tax to the state of Maine. So when you're selling an item, uh, and some things related to services too, you'll be paying sales tax on the items you sell. And once again, that's something that your accountant can help you with a lot. This has gotten a lot easier too, because oftentimes like point of sale systems like Square or a website payment portal will easily factor that in and make the appropriate charge to your product. And then it's just on you to have a system to account for it and then get it to the state at the appropriate time. And that's accountants are really good for that. Budgeting for taxes is important. The idea of making sure you're saving out enough money from profits uh, on a monthly basis is really important. It's also important to remember taxes when we're pricing our products and services, because if we forget that, we're going to be making a lot less on our product or services. And it's just one of those things that seems like it's easy for people to forget. Hire a pro. Yep, that's an accountant every time. Do you need an attorney? Um, Possibly, but not always. Um, some of the possible needs here are, understanding the liability of what you're doing. What have you not thought of? What are things that you're exposing yourself to liabilities for that you hadn't considered? Entity formation, they can be really helpful in forming an entity like your business entity. But like I said, a lot of times you can do this yourself, but there are times where you don't want to. Partnerships are a really good example. Having a partnership agreement in place when you do the entity formation is a really good way to make sure partnership is equitable and understandable from the start. It helps you assign roles to the partnership. Some people think of that as a way to you know uh, get rid of the business when there's a catastrophic fight between partners. I actually think it's really good for avoiding those kind of fights. So that to me is one of the really great things that a lawyer can do for you if you're in a partnership. Having them make a partnership agreement is really, really good. Um, Lease, purchase, sale. Yeah. Any lease that you're going to sign, if it's great to have a lawyer look it over. Purchasing, purchase and sales agreements, if you're buying something, having them draw it up potentially, or having them at least review it. View one that you're getting from a different party is really good. Another place that I think an attorney can be really beneficial is contracts between the business and a client. This is especially true in trades-based industries, things like that, where you're signing contracts for large projects, construction projects, things like that. Um, Having a signed contract that meets the needs of what you're doing, you and your industry, is really uh, important. And while there are times where a pretty generic contract is appropriate, there are a lot of times where you want to have one that really covers the basis of specifically what you're doing. The other thing I think to keep in mind with an attorney is it Often a little bit of time with an attorney goes a long way. So if you have like questions in the startup, things like understanding your liability, just having thought it through, made a good list of questions for them. I think, just like an hour or two consult with them is not that expensive and can really help avoid a lot of issues. So, even if you do end up using an attorney, you can often do it without a lot of expense. Same with trademarks and patents. If you're going to do a trademark or a patent, you certainly want an attorney involved. So a tax ID number is a real thing that all businesses need, except for sole proprietors. It's called an EIN, an employee identification number, and it's very easy to do. You just you just go on to the IRS website once you have your paper, your LLC formation or your corporation formation paperwork back, and you go in and it's a 10-minute procedure, and it's free to get one. Um, and it's like a social security number for your business. So it's anything that taxes that's related to taxes that will be associated with that. Some people, even if they might not need one, some people do get one because it is also a buffer from your social security number. So it says here, should you get one? You should get one if any type of an LLC or corporate formation, you're going to need one. But you don't necessarily need one if you're a sole proprietor. And don't pay for it. It's another one of those things, just like registering for a corporation. Somebody will file that for you and charge you it, but it literally the form will time out if you don't do it in 15 minutes. So it's designed to be super fast, super easy, and free. At the bottom of the slide is the web address to go to do it. One of the biggest things with hiring employees is whether they're going to be an independent contractor or an employee. And this is this people are confused by this a lot. An employee truly does what you tell them to do when you tell them to do it. So their schedule is dictated by you as the employer, where an independent contractor is going to be hired to do a job that's by your direction, but their time is their own. You're not making a time. You're not making a schedule for them. They're making the schedule and fitting the job in. That's the easiest way to describe the difference, I think. And it is important to use them appropriately. An independent contractor certainly can be cheaper than hiring an employee without the long-term commitments, and that can be very appropriate. But it you have to know where the line is. If they're there all week long for you, doing what you tell them to do, they're probably an employee. There are a lot of rules when hiring an employee that you want to consider. And there are a lot of other things, there are a lot of other things to consider too, like whether you want a policy manual. This spells out a lot of things from, how a workflow goes, but also safety issues, things like that. Um, and there's a lot of things to consider, and a policy manual can be helpful in guiding your employees and managing them on a day-to-day basis. Managing payroll, again, that comes back to taxes and paying your employees on a regular basis, all of that. There's a lot to consider when managing payroll, and it's a pretty big job. It's one of the things that I always recommend to give to a professional service first. If there's like priority of things to give to someone else to do, this is often a nice one to do it with because a payroll service is quite an affordable service and it will manage all the things like taking taxes out, taking workers' compensation amounts out, and things like that. Sorry, not workers' compensation, taxes, and Social Security, things like that will be taken out automatically. And they can even set up like how that money gets to the appropriate place, like the IRS say. Um, yeah, great. You made it, right? Your business is open. Um, Now what, right? And how do we get there, right? We get there through marketing, things like that, connecting with people around us, doing our own promotions, again, back to like talking to potential customers in the community. Um, Positive press. I really like positive press, things like donations with your business name on it, sponsoring an event. If you can find where your customers are and sponsor something meaningful to that target customer, if you've aligned yourself with them, it's a really good way to get customers to come in. Giveaways, games, yeah, free samples, things in the beginning. All of this stuff is a good way to get started. Just make sure you're spending the money you can afford on it, and not that you can't in the beginning. Um, and uh, yeah, and that's it, I guess. If you need help from us in the future or want to work with us, this is all the information to get to us. And again, you'll get the whole slide deck later, so you can grab any of these links that you want, and we're happy to help with any business needs of yours at any time. Oops. Yeah, so questions. I know we're running a little short on time and I apologize, but um, any questions? I'll look. It looks like there are just a couple. Uh, oh, yeah. Can you change your entity over time? Yes, you can. The example here is can an LLC can it start as an LLC and change, or do I have to stay as an LLC forever? No, you can. You can change from an LLC to, say, an S corporation. Again, I would recommend hiring an accountant and or attorney, whoever's to help you through that process. But absolutely, you're not locked into the LLC forever. Oh, sorry, somebody answered it already in the chat. Well, there's the answer. Um, in case everyone hasn't seen it, though, does SBDC have any support on cash flow projections? Absolutely. Like I said during the presentation, it's one of the ways that I feel like I can often be most helpful to a client, because it is they're not easy if you've never done one. So yeah, absolutely, anytime. And unless anyone has any other questions, that's it for me.